The lights inside Madison Square Garden dropped to a dim blue, the kind that makes even seasoned performers feel small. It's September 2001, and a single camera cue sweeps across the stage, hunting for the moment everyone knows is coming. At center stage stands Michael Jackson, black fedora tilted forward, one gloved hand still at his side. Just a few feet away is Usher, younger, sharper, dressed to move, knees already loose like he's bracing for a sprint. The music hits a familiar chord progression, the kind burned into pop history. This is the split second where lineage meets legacy. One wrong move, one overreach, and a career can be rewritten in real time. Somewhere between the spotlight and the beat drop, Usher decided not to stand still. The danger is visible in the object between them, the stage itself, shared ground with the most untouchable performer alive. Days earlier, the rules of this world were already clear. The occasion was Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary celebration, rehearsed under heavy security and industry pressure. Madison Square Garden wasn't just a venue, it was a shrine. Executives, producers, and cameras were aligned around one central truth. This night belonged to Michael. The set lists were tight, the camera cues locked, every step measured against decades of mythology. Usher wasn't there as competition on paper, he was there as proof of influence, a living receipt of what Michael Jackson had created. Yet backstage, according to accounts from people close to the rehearsals, there was a quiet electricity around Usher's name. He was the R&B star of his generation, trained as a dancer, raised on the same visual language Michael invented. Standing still would have been safe, matching energy would be risky. Trying to match moves would be borderline reckless. At rehearsal, the mirrors told the story before the crowd ever could. Usher ran the choreography with his dancers, sharp turns, fast footwork, breath controlled. A choreographer reportedly warned him, half joking, half serious, "Remember where you are." The object of power here wasn't a contract or a microphone. It was the choreography itself, the shared physical language of dance. In this room, Michael Jackson's moves weren't just steps, they were territory. To echo them too closely could read as tribute or as challenge, and in an industry that feeds on hierarchy, the difference matters. The pressure wasn't only artistic, the cameras mattered. This was televised, archived, destined to be replayed forever. Executives needed a clean narrative, Michael as king, guests as celebrants. Usher's team understood that visibility here could elevate him to another tier, but it could also flatten him if the comparison went wrong. According to some insiders, there was a conversation about energy management, a polite way of saying, "Don't outshine the sun." Yet the very reason Usher was invited was because he could move, because he embodied the future. That contradiction sat heavy in the room. The night before the show, Usher reportedly watched old Michael Jackson footage alone, studying the precision of Billie Jean, the economy of motion, the way restraint created power. This wasn't obsession, it was preparation. The stakes were clear. On that stage, next to that glove, the margin for error was zero. One misstep wouldn't just be personal embarrassment, it would be a public recalibration of how close anyone was allowed to stand to Michael Jackson's throne. Back at Madison Square Garden, sound check echoed through the empty seats. The light stages flared on and off as technicians tested cues. Usher stepped onto the exact mark where he would later stand, feeling the wood under his shoes. That spot was an object, too, a physical coordinate tied to destiny. To the left, Michael's mark. To the right, space that belonged to no one. According to accounts, Usher practiced holding back, letting the beat pass through him without exploding. But restraint is a skill learned the hard way, especially for an artist built on motion. As showtime approached, the atmosphere thickened. Celebrities filled the front rows. Cameras rolled. The band took their places. Somewhere backstage, a final decision solidified, not spoken, but felt.
When the music came, Usher wouldn't disappear. He wouldn't challenge outright. He would step into the fire and trust his instincts. In this industry, the moment you hesitate is the moment you're forgotten. The announcer's voice boomed, the crowd roared, Michael Jackson walked out to thunder, and just a few beats later, Usher followed him into the light, onto the same stage, toward the same music, carrying a choice that would define him long after the applause faded.
The next night, Madison Square Garden is no longer a rehearsal space, it's a pressure cooker. The date flashes on the production schedule, September 7, 2001, and every camera is now live ammunition. When Usher steps onto the stage behind Michael Jackson, the distance between them is measured in feet, but felt in decades. Michael controls the tempo with a subtle hand gesture, a cue the band recognizes instantly. That gesture is an object of authority, small but absolute. Usher clocks it. He knows when the king moves, everyone else adjusts. As the first song rolls, the choreography unfolds exactly as planned. Michael's footwork is minimal, surgical. Each step lands like punctuation. Usher mirrors the rhythm but not the steps, letting his shoulders ride the beat, letting the audience feel his presence without demanding attention. This is containment. According to people who later spoke about the night, there was a sense that Usher was testing the perimeter, seeing how much space existed around Michael without crossing an invisible line. Then the music shifts. A familiar groove slides in, one tied directly to Michael's legacy, a song the audience knows in their bones. The camera cue swings wide, catching both men in the same frame. This is where the hierarchy becomes visible. Michael's glove flashes under the lights as he hits a pose the world recognizes instantly. The crowd screams before the move is even finished. Usher reacts a half-beat later, not copying the pose, but accelerating his own movement, adding speed, adding athleticism. It's not imitation, it's response. Backstage monitors show producers leaning forward. One insider later described the moment as a held breath. The object now isn't just the stage or the choreography, it's the camera frame itself. Who commands it? Who pulls the eye? Usher's spins are clean, sharp, undeniably impressive. For a split second, the audience noise swells in his direction, not louder than Michael's, but different, younger, hungrier. Michael notices. Accounts differ on exactly when, but multiple witnesses say his head turns slightly, eyes cutting toward Usher mid-routine. It's not anger, it's assessment. Michael adjusts, tightening his movements, slowing them down. The contrast is deliberate, power through restraint. The lesson is visual and immediate. You don't beat speed with speed, you beat it with gravity. The next song begins almost without pause. Sweat glistens under the lights. Usher wipes his brow, a human gesture caught by a roaming camera. Michael doesn't wipe anything. He stands still for a beat longer than expected, letting silence do the work. That pause is an object too, a weapon. When he moves again, the crowd detonates. Usher steps back instinctively, recalibrating his position on the stage, literally and figuratively. Between songs, Michael leans in, says something unheard over the music. According to later interviews, it wasn't a reprimand, it was a reminder. A few words close to the ear, delivered without breaking character. Hierarchy communicated privately, not publicly. Usher nods. The next sequence, his movements change, still sharp but less expansive. He channels energy inward instead of outward, dancing with Michael rather than next to him. The escalation continues not through conflict, but through contrast. Song after song, Michael demonstrates command without exertion. Usher demonstrates effort, excellence, ambition. The audience reads both. This isn't a battle, but it feels like a test. Can the student stand in the master's light without being erased? Can proximity elevate instead of consume? By the time they reach the final number of the set, the stakes are fully exposed. This is the last chance for Usher to make an impression that sticks.
The camera cue tightens again, framing the two of them center stage. Michael hits a classic move, freezes, the crowd roars. Usher, instead of matching it, stops moving entirely. He stands, watching. It's a choice, a visible surrender of competition in favor of acknowledgement. The music swells toward its end. Applause crashes over the stage like a wave. Michael raises his arm, glove catching the light, signaling the close. Usher steps back, claps, bows his head slightly. In that gesture, small, deliberate, caught on broadcast television, the narrative shifts. The challenge dissolves. The message locks in. But the true detonation hasn't happened yet, because what matters isn't just what the audience saw that night. It's how that moment would echo, how standing next to Michael Jackson and choosing when to step forward and when to step back would reshape Usher's understanding of power, performance, and longevity.
The final chord fades inside Madison Square Garden, and the stage lights lift just enough to show sweat, smiles, and something harder to name. Michael Jackson steps forward to take the applause, the glove raised, the fedora tipped. Usher stands a few feet behind him, clapping, head slightly bowed. That physical distance is the last object in the frame, and it says everything. The moment people remember isn't a single dance move, it's the recalibration that happened in real time, under broadcast cameras, in front of the man who defined the rules of the game. When the show ends, the consequences begin almost immediately. Backstage, according to accounts from people present, Michael pulls Usher aside near a dressing room door, away from cameras. No shouting, no humiliation, just a few words delivered calmly. Usher later alluded in interviews to being checked by the experience, not corrected, but clarified. The message wasn't "don't dance," it was "understand the room." Understand legacy. Understand that proximity to power doesn't mean equality with it. The next morning, the industry response is swift. Media coverage of the anniversary show centers, predictably, on Michael Jackson's return to the stage, his presence, his endurance. But in the margins of those stories, Usher's name appears again and again. Held his own, shared the stage, the heir apparent, almost. That qualifier matters. The object now isn't the stage or the choreography, it's language. How the press frames you determines how the system treats you. In the weeks that follow, insiders notice a shift. Usher's live performances change. The footwork is still there, the athleticism intact, but there's more space between moves, more stillness, more attention to when not to move. Songs like "You Don't Have to Call" and later "Burn" are performed with a different pacing, a confidence that doesn't rush to prove itself. According to people who worked with him, that night at Madison Square Garden becomes a reference point in rehearsals. "Remember the MJ night," someone would say, and everyone knew what it meant. What happened on that stage shaped Usher's career not because he lost, but because he learned. The thesis reveals itself here. Greatness isn't about matching legends move for move. It's about absorbing the lesson they're teaching without saying it out loud. Michael Jackson didn't block Usher. He didn't embarrass him. He demonstrated a higher level of control and let the contrast do the work. That kind of lesson sticks. Years later, when Usher stands on stages of his own, Vegas residencies, Super Bowl halftime shows, the influence is visible. The camera lingers on him during moments of stillness. The pauses are intentional. The restraint reads as authority. He commands the frame the way Michael once did, not by filling every second with motion, but by deciding which seconds matter. The lineage completes itself quietly. Culturally, that night becomes lore. Some fans remember it as the moment Usher tried to outdance Michael. Others insist it was a respectful tribute. The truth lives in between, and that's where growth happens. According to accounts, Usher never denied the tension. He embraced it. He understood that standing next to a giant means your proportions change. You either look smaller or you learn how to carry weight differently. The system noticed too. Record executives began marketing Usher less as the next Michael and more as something distinct, adult,
controlled, dangerous in a quieter way. Albums that followed leaned into mood, into narrative, into presence. That strategic shift traces back to a single shared stage, a single camera frame, a single decision not to push further. In the end, what shaped Usher's career wasn't the attempt to match Michael Jackson. It was the moment he realized matching wasn't the goal. Survival was, longevity was. Learning when to step back so the audience could see you clearly when you stepped forward again. On that night at Madison Square Garden, under those lights, Usher didn't lose a battle, he graduated.